Yawning is contagious. You've probably experienced this before. You were hanging out with some friends or maybe just someone you know, and they let out a big yawn. You didn't even think anything of it at first, but then a few moments later, you found yourself yawning as well. Now, I know that might sound silly, but there are actually a number of different reasons why seeing someone else yawn can make you yawn. And we're going to talk about all of those today. So, if you're ready, let's get into it. The first reason why you might be yawning when you see someone else yawn is because of something called the mirror neuron system. The mirror neuron system is a group of neurons in your brain that fire both when you perform an action and when you see someone else perform that same action. It was first discovered in macaque monkeys, but researchers believe that humans have a similar mirror neuron system as well. So, for example, let's say you're eating a delicious slice of pizza. Your brain has a group of neurons that are responsible for the action of eating. And as you take a bite of that pizza, those neurons will fire. But the mirror neuron system says that when you see someone else eating, those same neurons will also go off in your brain. In fact, they'll fire in almost the exact same way that they did when you were the one actually eating the pizza. And researchers believe that this happens with yawning as well. When you see someone else yawn, those same yawning-related neurons in your brain become active, which can trigger you to yawn yourself. Now keep in mind that we don't actually have any definitive proof of this. This is all based on research involving other animals and educated guesses about how our brains work. But it does seem like a good hypothesis, given what we know about the mirror neuron system. Another potential reason why you yawn when you see someone else yawn is something called the chameleon effect. The chameleon effect describes our tendency to unconsciously mimic other people's behavior. For example, if you're hanging out with a friend who has their arms crossed, you might cross your arms too, even though you weren't doing that before they arrived. Or, if you're at a party and someone approaches you with a big smile, you'll probably smile back even if you didn't feel like it before they came up to you. And yawning is no exception here. If you're spending time with someone who's yawning a lot, you might start to subconsciously mimic them and yawn more often too. Now, the chameleon effect isn't quite as powerful as the mirror neuron system. You won't necessarily start yawning every time you see someone else do it, but you might find that you yawn more frequently when you're around a certain person. A third reason why you might be yawning when you see someone else yawn is because of something called the emotional contagion effect. Basically, emotions are contagious. Think about the last time you were around someone who was really happy. Did you find yourself smiling more often? Or how about the last time you spent time with someone who was really sad? Did you find yourself feeling down afterwards? Well, yawning can be an emotional signal too. When someone yawns, they might be tired, bored, or even nervous. And those emotions can be contagious. So if you're around someone who's tired, you might start to feel tired yourself, which could make you yawn. Or if you're around someone who's nervous, you might start to feel nervous as well. Of course, it doesn't always work like this. Sometimes being around someone who's sad can make you feel sad, but that doesn't mean that you'll start crying. It just means that you might start feeling more negative emotions. Similarly, being around someone who's tired doesn't necessarily mean that you'll start yawning. It just means that you might start feeling a bit sleepier than normal. The fourth reason why you might be yawning when you see someone else yawn is simply because you are empathetic. Maybe you care about the person you're spending time with, and you do not want them to get sick. Or maybe you just don't want them to be tired or stressed out. So you pay close attention to their body language and try to pick up on any subtle hints they might be giving you. If you notice that they're yawning a lot, you might assume that they're tired, and you try to make sure that they get some rest. And if you notice that they're yawning out of nervousness, you might try to make them feel more comfortable. In these situations, you might yawn yourself simply because you want to be in tune with the person you're spending time with. Finally, The fifth reason why you might be yawning when you see someone else yawn is because you haven't had enough sleep recently. This one is pretty straightforward. If you're already tired, you're much more likely to yawn when you see someone else yawning. In fact, there's a good chance that this is why you're watching this video right now. You probably clicked on it because you were curious about why you yawn when you see someone else yawn. But chances are you only clicked on the video because you were already tired. Of course, this doesn't mean that the other reasons we talked about aren't real. It just means that if you're already tired, you're much more likely to experience these effects. All right, so now that we've gone over all the different reasons why you might be yawning when you see someone else yawn, let me ask you a question. Is there anyone in particular who makes you yawn more than anyone else? Maybe there's a friend who always seems to be tired, or a family member who gets nervous really easily. It might be helpful to consider whether the two of you are simply in different energy states, or maybe it's worth checking in on them to see how they're doing. I also want to ask you another question. Do you think that emotions can be contagious? I personally do, but it's definitely a controversial topic. There are plenty of studies that show that emotions can spread from person to person. But there are also plenty of studies that show that people are not mind readers. Ultimately, I think it comes down to how closely you pay attention to the people around you and whether or not you trust them. Finally, I want to ask you a third question. Have you ever tried to fight the urge to yawn when you see someone else yawn? Personally, I'm usually able to stop myself from yawning if I really try. But sometimes it's really hard, especially if I haven't slept in a while. If you've been able to stop yourself from yawning, I'd love to hear how you did it. Just pop your answer in the comments below. Yawning is a fascinating topic, and I could have easily made this video twice as long. But hopefully you learned something new, and now you understand why you yawn when you see someone else yawn. Before you go, I want to remind you that you are amazing. Keep that in mind next time you catch yourself yawning during class or work, or maybe even while you're watching one of my videos. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.